Thank you, PS. Good morning, everybody. And as PS did earlier on, PS Hyacinth, permit me to reiterate our deepest sympathies with the families of the students who passed during the passage of Hurricane Maria, as well as some of our parents of students and other members of the community. We express our deepest sympathies to the families and the loved ones who may have suffered. I will just look at some of the imperatives which will be faced with when we do open our schools. The very first one is, as PS mentioned, the sanitary situation. We will ensure that all our schools have running water via either tanks or the regular supply of water from the WASCO. In addition to that, we'll also be supplying potable drinking water to our students when we do engage them. So we will not envisage any significant issues thereon. We expect our teachers and our principals to report to post as of tomorrow. We want them to engage the community in doing the cleaning up in the classrooms and doing the assessment of the resource needs with reference to material resources, text and otherwise. We are currently in the process of sourcing text material for our students when they do return. So I want to reiterate that we expect our principals and our teachers to report to post tomorrow. It will also give us an indication of the availability of our teachers to ensure that we continue facilitating the process of engagement of students. We also want to have a meeting with all our principals on Wednesday this week. That is the, out of dates, is the 12th? The 11th? Wednesday this week anyway, at 9 o'clock at the Newtown Primary School. Again, this goes out to all our principals. We will be having a meeting on Wednesday. Primary and secondary, that is, all our principals are meeting on Wednesday at the Newtown Primary School, and Wednesday is the 11th of October. I will again reiterate that all our is the 10th? Wednesday is the 10th of October. Is it, or is it 11th? It's the 11th at 10 o'clock. I'll reiterate again, tomorrow we expect our teachers and principals, primary and secondary, to report to post. Therein, they will give us an assessment of the resource needs of our schools. They will assist, engage the community in cleaning up activities, and that is particularly relevant for the schools with very, very insignificant damage, the schools that were not significantly affected. But we expect all teachers and principals to report because we want to get an assessment of our staffing needs at our schools. So please register at your schools tomorrow. I will reiterate again that on Wednesday, 11th, we'll have a meeting with all our principals, primary and secondary, from 10 o'clock at the Newtown Primary School. We envisage that we will have regular hours for our schools from 9 to 1 p.m. when we do resume, and that will go for both primary and secondary schools. The reason being the transportation challenges that we have had in terms of access and congestion, so we really would want to start, at least in the interim, an hour later to facilitate movement of students to the schools. So we will be going, and teachers as well. So we'll be going from 9 to 1 o'clock at those schools. As Pia said earlier on, and the secondary schools will be facilitating mainly the grade from 4 and 5 students. In some cases, we'll be also having the Form 3. In some of the secondary schools that were not significantly affected, we have the space availability for our students, so we will be going from Form 3 to Form 5. Again, principals will be informed on Wednesday of those schools. And then for the secondary schools with somewhat more damage, we will look at from Form 4 to Form 5. Again, we'll inform principals of those schools affected. For the primary schools, we'll go from grade 2 to grade 6 initially. And PS mentioned the schools that we'll start off with in the first phase of our intervention. We will be starting with grade 2 to grade 6 because we recognize that the infants will have some challenges traversing to get to school. We also anticipate that our students will report in casual wear We're looking at jeans if possible and t-shirts. We recognize the challenge with the uniforms, so we will facilitate our students with reporting in casual wear. PS mentioned the psychosocial intervention, and Chief will speak a lot about that because we know that a lot of our students have been affected in one way or another, and safe to say that the very first week we'll be dealing a lot with the psychosocial part of it, which Chief will take care of. As I said earlier, we're in the process of sourcing text material for our students because we recognize that some of them may have lost their textbooks, etc., and other personal belongings. For the schools in the second phase of the intervention, those with more significant damage, not major damage, but more significant damage, because as we said earlier, we have categorized our schools into 3 major categories. Those with minimal damage or no damage at all, which we intend to open very, very quickly, and that is the 16 schools that PS mentioned, including the secondary schools that she mentioned, 16 primary schools and about 12 secondary schools, which she mentioned earlier. Those with some damage, which we are doing a rapid assessment, we may be able to, within the very near or immediate future, to do renovations of those schools so that we can open expeditiously. And then we have another set of schools with major damage. That means roofs blown away, windows broken. Some schools have been totally demolished, schools like Tetmon, for instance, which we will have to do. We have in the mechanism 2 options. One is having tents pitched in the communities where there is space for the tents. We have, thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister, we are in the process of securing some very large tents, as he may have mentioned earlier on, and they are well equipped. They are schools in themselves because they will have the furniture and the adequate resources to house students comfortably. We'll be pitching those tents at the communities where there is space. So that is one of our options for the schools in the second category, those with more extensive damage. And I will assure the public that those schools will be opened as quickly as possible after the first set of schools. So we will be using the tent. In some cases, we'll also be doing merger of schools where there is no space for the tent to pitch a tent in a community. We will be merging schools and having them work simultaneously. We have done that in the past, so the Ministry of Education is quite versed in doing that sort of work. One of the opportunities that we have established over the last several years is the transportation system for our students, because we have routinely been transporting our students by and large to schools. So we will do an assessment of our buses, both the private buses that we have contracted and our public buses, the government buses. We are in the process of doing an assessment to ensure that those will be ready when we start. Safe to say that for the first 16 schools, many of them are nested within the communities, so we may not have the issue of the transportation as much because they are the primary schools within the communities, so they are within walking distance in many instances. So we will not have that significant challenge in terms of transportation. I really want to commend our principals and teachers within the communities who have been doing, and our education officials who have in the past weeks been doing significant work in the communities in terms of sharing of relief supplies, in terms of assessing the schools, in terms of relaying information to the Ministry of Education. We recognize that it takes a significant amount of effort and initiative to do just that, to engage oneself in a productive capacity. We need to continue as a nation engaging ourselves productively because we have a significant task ahead of us. It is not daunting. We can get there, but it will take collective effort, as the Honorable Prime Minister has indicated several times, that everybody has to chip in. The Ministry of Education really wants to recognize the efforts of the principals and teachers in that regard, and we want to assure you that we will work earnestly to ensure that our students are safe primarily. That is our major focus. They are safe. They're in as welcoming as possible an environment that they'll be comfortable and continue with their learning with minimal interruptions. We really want to ensure the public that we will do our best to ensure that students are back at school as quickly as possible, but we want the community to support us in that regard, in chipping in to assist in terms of the clearing in of our schools and ensuring parents as much as possible that you give students drinking water, although we'll be supplying, but it will relieve some of the burden on us supplying if you can give them drinking water to get to school when they do get to school, and support the Ministry of Education as best you can. Thank you, and may God bless you, may God bless the Commonwealth of Dominica.